Alright, so it's no secret that every Star Wars fan worth their salt has thought that Marek, the Inquisitor from Ahsoka, could end up being Galen Marek, the apprentice of Darth Vader known as Starkiller. But Galen has been on the minds of Star Wars fans since his last appearance in The Force Unleashed 2, and ever since the slate was wiped almost completely clean when Disney acquired Lucasfilm, Galen lost his position within Star Wars as the infamous Vader-trained Jedi Hunter, and that gap was partially filled by the Inquisitors of Canon. However, none of them really lived up to Starkiller. Fans have been clamoring for his return ever since we first met the Inquisitors in Star Wars Rebels. From fan art to fan fiction, Galen has been at the forefront of the fans' imaginations for nearly a decade, and now the time seems right. Could Galen make his triumphant return to battle another one of Anakin's students, the fan favorite, Ahsoka Tano? In this video, I've brought back Star Wars Legends historian Crisis to talk all things Galen Marek and how we've connected Galen Marek to the former Inquisitor Marek from Ahsoka. And again, pretty much everyone has been discussing this theory for months, but I think we have brought a unique spin to it that will really convince you that Marek will 100% be Starkiller from Star Wars Legends. And if he's not, then just forget I said any of this. But before we get into Galen's backstory and why he's definitely in Ahsoka, I'd like to thank today's sponsor, Factor. Summer is coming to an end and fall is creeping in. It's easy to stay inside, get lazy, cozy up with some treats, and then hibernate until spring. But with Factor, you can easily make sure you're eating well while saving time. Skip the trip to the grocery store, skip the chopping, prepping, and cleaning up as well, while still getting flavor and nutritional quality that you need. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes, so all you have to do is heat and enjoy, then get back to crushing your goals. I'll be honest, I was really skeptical at first. As someone who works full-time and does YouTube as well, I have little to no free time to myself, and cooking is difficult sometimes. I often find myself in a rut of heating up frozen meals at work and then ordering fast food for dinner. I wanted a better option, and Factor claimed that they were just that. And honestly, I was blown away. I thought the quality would be similar to the frozen meals I already buy and eat on a weekly basis, but Factor tasted like a freshly cooked, well-balanced meal. It's literally become my go-to at-work solution and will be a staple of my dinner rotations when I don't have time to cook. My favorite was the black pepper and sage pork chop with smoked cheddar Brussels sprouts and creamy broccoli, but honestly, all of them exceeded my expectations, and I plan to be a regular customer. Meal plans range from 4 to 18 meals per week. You can add more or reduce the number depending on your specific needs. Plus, you can easily skip a week if you need to. Again, it's something that I'm going to be using, and I do highly recommend it. It's tasty and balanced food. So head to Factor75.com or click the link below and use code KEYISSUES50 to get 50% off your first Factor box. Thank you to Factor for sponsoring this video, and again, head to Factor75.com or click the link below and use code KEYISSUES50 to get 50% off your first Factor box.
Trained you well, but you still have much to learn.
You have nothing left to teach me.
Hey everyone, Crisis here. Galen Marek, son of 2 Order 66 surviving Jedi Masters, was raised and trained in secret by Darth Vader after he'd slain the young boy's father. In the near 20-year span known as the Dark Times, the Sith Lord would hone his young apprentice into a lethal tool of hate, never giving him rest, never showing mercy, providing the farthest thing from a fair and loving environment. After proving himself worthy, Vader would send Starkiller out on various missions to defeat a few remaining Jedi survivors. Generals, council members, and outcasts all fell to his blade. Galen, unlike the Inquisitors such as Jarek and the like, lacked any official backing from the Empire, however. He was a secret apprentice, forged in the shadows and deployed as such, with not even Palpatine being aware of his existence at first. For a time, it seemed as though Vader hoped to use Galen to usurp Sidious and rule the galaxy alongside him. However, he only served the Empire insofar as forcing their enemies into a meeting, with Vader and Sidious hoping to defeat them in a single motion. Betraying Galen and leaving him for dead, the one-time apprentice turned to the ways of the light side, becoming a beacon for the burgeoning Rebel Alliance. His family crest, in fact, became the Rebel insignia. Funny enough, he almost plays the role of Fulcrum in the Legends timeline. Starkiller would aid Leia Organa and free Wookiee slaves, eventually growing in power as he learned of his origins, scouring the ruins of the Jedi Temple for knowledge, learning under his Jedi Master. Galen would then face Vader. Due to his master underestimating his pupil, Starkiller would prove victorious, setting his sights on Sidious. The Sith Lord would prove too powerful, however, killing the secret apprentice. His sacrifice, however, provided enough time for the future rebel leaders to escape, setting in motion the heroic rise of Leia Organa and Luke Skywalker. Vader would later then clone his dead apprentice, hoping this time to harness his power as a means of finally extinguishing the rebellion he incidentally created. The clone, however, would remember his past allegiances and more or less go on a similar quest as his first life, ending with his capture of Vader, which was never followed up on. We can only assume Galen was either eventually killed for good by his master, with the little we know of Force Unleashed 3 showcasing that Vader was simply toying with Starkiller throughout their first two duels. That, or Galen just managed to disappear outright.
Obey me, or she dies, apprentice.
So, with Galen's backstory in mind, let's take a look at the first piece of evidence, their names. While the name Marek could simply be a nice reference to Galen Marek, it's much deeper than that. Marek in Arthurian mythology was the name of a knight who was transformed into a wolf by a witch in Morgan Le Fay's coven. Morgan Le Fay also sharing that first name with Morgan Elspeth, the Night Sister from Ahsoka. And it could just be a coincidence, but I don't think so, for a few reasons. First, Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati also might be familiar names to God of War fans, and if you're not getting it, let's take away their first names and now we're left with Skoll and Hati, the two names of the Norse wolves in their mythology who chase the sun and the moon. Obviously, wolves are pack hunters much like the Inquisitors, so I think it's not just thematic in that sense, but also works as a hint to Marek's true identity. And secondly, I think we need to dig into the Arthurian legend just a bit more. Does any of this attach itself to Galen Marek's backstory at all? So, as detailed by scholars at Bangor University in Wales, Marek is an honorable knight who serves under Uther and then Arthur. For the former, he drives robbers, witches, and warlocks and wolves from his lands and then becomes its lord. When he joins Arthur in his continental wars, he designates Irma, a learned woman, to govern the lands. But she is, quote-unquote, of the council of Morgan Le Fay, and proves to be a self-serving ruler who turns the land back to its former savagery. When Marek returns, Irma uses a spell to turn him into a wolf. But even in this form, he does all he can to restore order by slaying wolves, driving off witches and warlocks, and battling robbers. Ultimately, he enters his former castle, makes his way to Irma's room, and destroys the talisman that binds him in a wolf's form. So, how does that relate to Starkiller?
Well, Galen Marek is an honorable apprentice who serves Vader. He drives Jedi from the land in hopes of becoming its lord beside him. Vader and Sidious prove to be self-serving rulers who turn the galaxy into a savage and miserable place. When Marek returns, he's turned into what he believes to be a more trusted ally to Vader, but even in this form, he does all he can to restore order by freeing slaves and rebel leaders. Ultimately, he enters Vader and Sidious's throne room, fights Sidious, and sacrifices himself, becoming one with the Force, besting the master that bound him to the role of Sith apprentice, dying as a Jedi. If you ask me, I think it's pretty clear there's a connection.
I let you live. You tell me I'm a clone, but I chose to spare you. Oh, maybe Coda's right. Maybe this is all a trick, a way to get me so confused that I'd forget who I really am and become your slave again. But either way, I let you live. I've finally broken your hold over me.
The connections are really just too blatant to be a mere coincidence in our opinion, and as Crisis detailed, Galen Marek was essentially a secret Inquisitor before the canon Inquisitors even existed, so bringing him back would be a no-brainer, which Dave Filoni, the showrunner, writer, and director of Ahsoka, thought years ago. Back in 2017, Sam Witwer, the actor who plays Galen Marek, shared on his Twitch stream that Dave considered bringing back Galen Marek to be an Inquisitor during the events of Star Wars Rebels. Quote, Dave did share with me, by the way, he considered making Starkiller an Inquisitor in Star Wars Rebels. It didn't quite fit the story that they were telling, but he did think about it because he thought that would be interesting. Unquote. And speaking of Sam Witwer, he was credited at the end of the first 2 episodes of Ahsoka for additional voices. Sam is a prolific voice actor who has performed many roles within the Star Wars universe, as a narrator for various novels, to minor characters, to major ones like Darth Maul, Galen Marek, and even Darth Sidious in The Force Unleashed and Connect Star Wars. So while him being credited with additional voices could just be that, random background characters he lent his voice to, it could also be pointing to the connection between Marek and Starkiller. Another major piece of evidence takes place within the show itself. As I detailed in multiple videos, Ahsoka is incredibly powerful, able to go toe-to-toe with Darth Vader himself, and when met with lesser opponents like the Inquisitors, she deals with them nonchalantly. They pose zero challenge to her. But Marek is different. Not only does he go blow for blow with the powerful Jedi Master, but he escapes with his life. In the Legends timeline, Galen Marek is an ultra-powerful Force user known for his insane feats of Force power. So if Marek the Inquisitor was actually Starkiller in canon, it would make sense for him to be on another level compared to the other Inquisitors who stood no chance against Ahsoka while he was able to somewhat hold his own. Since the Inquisitorius had been long disbanded by this point, I'd assume Darth Vader was the one to cull the pack, as it were. After all, the Empire believed that Darth Vader was the only living practitioner of what they called, quote-unquote, the ancient religion, and if Marek were to survive that encounter with Darth Vader, it would be fitting as Galen battled Vader during the Legends timeline as well. But there have also been more blatant references to Galen Marek within Star Wars, that being his Sith Stalker helmet, which is worn by the dark side version of Marek in the Force Unleashed series. This helmet is located within Luthen Rael's Antiquities shop during the events of Andor. While Andor takes place years before Ahsoka, the helmet still could have been worn by Galen during the canon timeline at some point. After all, the Inquisitorius was active immediately following the fall of the Jedi Order and would have been disbanded before Andor takes place anyway. So could this actually have been a piece of armor worn by Starkiller in canon? I think so. I mean, it is literally a reference to the character, and if he is the Inquisitor Marek, as we're proposing here, its inclusion within Andor becomes much more than just an Easter egg. Not to mention Sidious's obsession with cloning technology by this point in his life. He was obsessed with creating a body which could contain his almighty power, from clones of himself at various ages to Snoke. Is it out of the realm of possibility that Marek could have been killed by Vader when the Inquisitors were no longer deemed necessary, but a clone of Galen survived as he did in The Force Unleashed 2? All of the possibilities are there, including the fact that Filoni is adapting Heir to the Empire, wherein a clone of a Jedi is the main antagonist. All of the evidence is there to point to the triumphant return of Galen Marek. Do you see it? I mean, did I mention they also have the same name? I think there's a pretty clear connection, and if not, then, I think that will really suck. But let us know down in the comments what you think. Is Galen Marek actually Marek the Inquisitor, or are we just reading way too much into it? Is this a trail of clues left by Dave Filoni, or is it all leading to nothing? Let us know what you think down in the comments. Also, let us know what you think of Ahsoka so far. Thanks again to Crisis for helping out with this video, and be sure to check out his channel as well. That's all I've got for you guys today. Remember the motto, it's Starkiller over everything, and I'll see you guys next time.